In this video, we're going to talk about some of the common conventions of graphic novels. So when you read a graphic novel, you're not just reading the text like as you would in a chapter book. You also have to read the illustrations, the pictures, and synthesize what you're seeing in the pictures with what the text in the graphic novel is saying. And authors and illustrators of graphic novels often convey a lot of information in the illustrations, so you need to know how to interpret those in order to effectively read and comprehend a graphic novel. And I found in my own personal experience that when I first started reading graphic novels, it was difficult and I had a really hard time navigating through the pages and figuring out what I was supposed to read in what order and what things meant. But as time went on and I read more and more graphic novels, I found that it became a lot easier, and now I can read graphic novels fairly quickly, and it's very easy for me to synthesize what I see in the illustrations with what I see in the text. So if you're new to graphic novels and reading your first graphic novel in this class felt a little frustrating to you, understand that you will improve your graphic novel reading skills over time, and hopefully some of the information that you'll see in this video will support you as you read more and more graphic novels and share them with students in your future classes. So let's start by talking about panels, frames, and gutters. So panels refer to the squares or the rectangles that you see on the page of a graphic novel, like we see 3 panels here in this top row of the page. And a frame is simply the border or the edge of a panel. Like in this book here, we see that the frames are black, and sometimes they might be a different color depending on what book you're looking at. And a gutter is the white space that we see in between the panels. And oftentimes, illustrators of graphic novels include gutters in order to signify the passage of time. Now let's look at speech and thought bubbles, and these might be familiar to you if you've ever read comics in any form, and the conventions that we see in comics are very similar to what we see in graphic novels. So a speech bubble is usually signified by a circular or oval shape, like what we see here. This is from the graphic novel El Deafo by C.C. Bell. We see the character Cece saying, I can see, and because this is circular or oval shaped, that signifies speech. On the other hand, when a character is thinking and we're getting a glimpse of what's going on in the character's mind, the bubble is wavy, almost looking like a cloud, like what we see here where it says, oh my goodness, she just said she's leaving him. That signifies what the character is thinking, not what the character is saying. And sometimes with a graphic novel, there will be additional information like at the top or bottom of the panel, like what we see here. We have a little bit of narration to carry the scene forward here in the yellow boxes, like where it says, sure enough, mom is right. That's another thing that you might see sometimes in graphic novels. So automatopoeia, you're probably familiar with this term if you've ever learned about poetry in school, which I'm sure you have, but onomatopoeia refers to words that are meant to represent sounds, and we oftentimes see them in graphic novels, and they're spelled out and oftentimes included as part of the illustrations, like what you see here in this example from Roller Girl, as well as this example from the graphic novel Be Prepared. So coloring. Sometimes graphic novels appear in full color, but other times you'll see graphic novels that are black and white and will have an accent color. For example, the Lunch Lady graphic novel series, which is appropriate for children in the primary grades and perhaps 3rd grade as well, uses black and white as well as yellow as the accent color. Whereas Be Prepared, which is a graphic novel I really enjoy, uses this green color in addition to black and white. And that color choice makes a lot of sense because this book is about a character who goes off to summer camp. And of course, when we think about camps, we think about the woods and we think about green and we think about brown. So this color nicely captures the setting of the story, which takes place at a summer camp. So when you read a graphic novel, you also have to pay very close attention to the character's facial expressions, because facial expressions communicate a lot of information that the author won't necessarily tell you within the text. So you have to look carefully at like the shape of the eyes that you see. You have to look at eyebrows. Are the characters blushing? For example, this scene here in from The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang, we can see the 2 characters both are blushing a little bit. So if I remember correctly, in this scene, they're talking to each other after not speaking for a long period of time, and they might be a little bit embarrassed about approaching each other after being apart for such a long period of time. And you can also look at body language like we see here. The character Frances is crossing her arms, so You know, she's listening, but she's still a little guarded in this particular scene. This picture from one of the narwhal and jellyfish books, we can see that the jellyfish looks a little bit annoyed, maybe dismayed, because his eyebrows are just like this flat line, whereas the narwhal, he's excited, he's happy. And in this scene here from Be Prepared, we can see that the character is like really like in awe and wonder. We see her eyes are huge and her eyebrows are sticking out to show that sense of awe and wonder. So the sequence and layout of a graphic novel, this is, I think, what throws a lot of new readers of graphic novels. And I'm going to move my webcam so you can actually see this picture a little bit better. So when you read the layout of a graphic novel, you need to read from left to right and top to bottom. So keep that rule in mind, because that'll help you navigate through the panels in a graphic novel. So if I was going to read this page from The Prince and the Dressmaker, I would start here in the top left corner, and I see that this is an image of a room, and we see our character, Frances, here. She's writing at a desk. And what we see in the center of the page is a close-up of Frances writing, just so we can kind of get a sense of what's going on in the scene. So I've looked at the top left, then I need to move to the top right, and we see a door opening, and we see Frances looking up. So I went from left to right and top to bottom, and then I move down again, and we see Frances, you know, a scene from behind, and we see that her friend is coming in and crashing on the couch. So this scene from one of the narwhal and jellyfish books, we would look over here at the left first. So we see this, I guess it's a pufferfish, kind of looking a little bit surprised or confused. And then we go over here to the right and we read from top to bottom in this sequence. So this one from Be Prepared, the series of panels, so we would read from left to right and from top to bottom, just like this. So when you come across panels that are set up in this way, again, left to right, top to bottom, so you would read this panel first, and then move over to the right, read this one next, and then read this one next. So there could be some exceptions when you read a graphic novel, but generally that's how many graphic novels are laid out in terms of the panels. So framing is another important consideration when you're interpreting a graphic novel, and I'm going to move my webcam over again. I hope that doesn't make you dizzy. But as we can see from this example, also from The Prince and the Dressmaker, framing makes a difference. So, or we can consider framing like how distant we are from the character. So here in this scene, and this is an intense scene where the characters are sort of like breaking up their friendship, we can see that she's giving back the key here in this scene. So we start off kind of being from at a distance from the characters, so we're a little bit detached from it. But as you can see, as we get to the bottom of the page, the action gets closer and closer. We're moving in. So this action of framing the panels in this way actually conveys a sense of emotional intensity. So as readers, we know that there's a lot of emotional turmoil happening in this particular scene. So those are some of the conventions that you'll often see in graphic novels, and I hope that talking about some of these and seeing some examples is helpful to you as you begin reading your own graphic novels.